if you've got the white helmets on the ground filming children that are suffering from hypoxia and pretending that they are being poisoned, and then you've got a government-funded outlet like Bellingcat basically saying, "Oh yeah, we've tracked everything, and it looks like they were dropped from the helicopters." Blah 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 blah. And then you've got an OPCW diplomats etc. are basically going in there and saying, "This is what we would like you to find, and this is what we would like your report to promote." They're creating their own reasons here to do whatever they want to around the world, and especially if you add in a compliant media going along with it. I mean, I remember though that when that interim report came out, the interim report came out, and it wasn't sarin, we found out, and what the interim report basically said, you'll remember this better than me, I'm sure, but it was something like, we found some traces of chlorine, but chlorine is found everywhere, it's household, well, we've bagged it, we've tagged it, we're going to check. And then the next thing you know, you've got a BBC headline, Douma was chlorine attack, says OPCW, and they had to go back and change that headline as a result. This is an Orwellian nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah, it is an Orwellian nightmare. One of the few mainstream journalists who's had the courage and integrity to cover this issue, and that's Peter Hitchens, has been, I think you can see in his tweets, has been gobsmacked. Not a term he would use, I'm sure, but astounded at the way in which mainstream media, even in the face of documentary evidence, even with testimony from whistleblowers, have steadfastly turned the other way, refused to look at this. And it really is quite extraordinary, the extent to which that has occurred in this case. It's remarkable. The mainstream media and the vast bulk of the professional journalists who know about this, and trust me, a lot of them know about this issue, but fail to report it, they are demeaning themselves, they're humiliating themselves, and in front of history. When all of this comes out, and it will come out, mark my words, this is too big an incident. There's too much information already in the public domain. There's more to come.
I agree.
It will be fully known, and then it will be always a mark of shame on the journalists who have failed to cover it. And in some ways, a lot of journalists got away with Iraq and the failures on Iraq. And there's a bit of sort of soul searching, and the New York Times gave a mealy-mouthed apology about not asking more difficult questions about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. But if this all happens a second time, within the space of 20 years, and another major deception, that's going to start to stick more. And this kind of notion that you and I have discussed before of the kind of complete collapse of mainstream media, people just saying this is enough is enough, we have to start again. I think calls for that will become stronger because of the truth coming out ultimately about Douma and what it tells everyone in the public about really how broken the mainstream media is, and it is very clearly broken at this point in time. They're not doing their job. No. They should be ashamed of themselves.
Absolutely.
And given that, as you hinted before, there's a very real possibility that the people who died at Douma were murdered for the purposes of the event, and there is a very real possibility somehow these people died somehow. Okay.
In pain and suffering, and this is a war crime that they died from, by the look of it.
And if it turns out that these people were murdered and all these journalists were turning the other way, I'm sorry, but that's complicity. Failure to do your job, failure to ask the right questions, and by doing that, you're allowing a war crime to go unpunished or unknown in history, and that's a terrible thing. Mainstream journalists, they earn good money and they have comfortable positions and they have a lot of power. It doesn't take much to stand up and do the right thing. And there's no excuse in this case. As Peter Hitchens says, there is no excuse now for the failure to report fully on the issues, the controversies which are now in circulation.